Number 8. The Puss caterpillar. It looks less like an animal and more like a loose piece of fur. That disguise is exactly what makes it dangerous. Beneath the soft outer coat of the Puss caterpillar are rows of hollow, venom-bearing spines. Brush against one, and those spines can snap into the skin like microscopic needles. The pain can be immediate and astonishingly intense. Victims describe a deep burning sensation that may spread from the contact site through an entire arm or leg. The skin can develop a red, grid-like pattern, matching the rows of spines. Serious systemic reactions are uncommon, and death is extraordinarily rare, but the caterpillar can still produce a medical emergency, especially when the face, eyes, or airway are involved. This is the larva of the southern flannel moth, and it is found mainly across the southern United States, from parts of the Atlantic coast through Texas. It often rests on trees and shrubs, but it can also fall onto clothing, outdoor furniture, or the ground. Children are especially vulnerable because it looks touchable. It resembles a tiny wig. It does not resemble a venom delivery system, and rubbing the area can make things worse by driving more spines into the skin. Adhesive tape can sometimes lift embedded spines away, but severe pain, breathing trouble, widespread swelling, faintness, or contact with the eyes requires urgent medical attention. For this countdown, America means the United States and its territories. Ticks, spiders, and scorpions are excluded because they are not insects. The ranking combines documented deaths, frequency of exposure, and the realistic ability to cause fatal illness. That matters because the most painful insect is not automatically the deadliest. In fact, the insect at number 1 usually leaves a mark far smaller than this caterpillar does. Number 7. Deer flies. A deer fly does not make a clean puncture the way a mosquito does. The female uses blade-like mouth parts to slice the skin, then drinks from the pool of blood that forms. The bite is painful, messy, and often interrupted when the victim swats the fly away. That interrupted feeding creates the dangerous part. A deer fly can carry contaminated blood on its mouthparts from one host to another. In the United States, it is one possible vector of Francisella tularensis, the bacterium that causes tularemia. Researchers believe deer fly transmission is mechanical. The bacterium is not completing some elegant life cycle inside the fly. The fly is more like a moving contaminated instrument. It feeds on an infected animal, retains infectious material on its mouthparts, and then cuts into another host before that material is lost. Tularemia is rare, but it can become severe. The classic form after an arthropod bite may begin with sudden fever, chills, exhaustion, and an ulcer where the organism entered. Nearby lymph nodes can become dramatically swollen and painful. If the infection spreads, it may cause pneumonia, bloodstream infection, inflammation around the heart, or organ failure. The United States usually records roughly 200 to 300 tularemia cases a year from all routes of exposure combined. That last detail is important. Deer flies do not cause all of those cases. People can also become infected through ticks, contaminated water, inhaled particles, or contact with infected rabbits and other animals. In modern US surveillance, many cases are linked to non-fly exposures. With treatment, most patients recover. The usual case fatality rate is below 2%, although risk changes with the bacterial strain, the form of disease, how quickly treatment begins, and the health of the patient. Untreated or misdiagnosed disease is far more dangerous. The fly itself may be gone in seconds. The fever can arrive days later when the bite no longer seems important. That delay is one reason tularemia can be difficult to recognize. A small wound, a large lymph node, and a sudden illness may look unrelated unless someone remembers the insect encounter. The Puss caterpillar delivers its own venom. The next insect can turn another animal's blood into a contaminated blade. But number 6 is stranger still, because it may spend most of its life hiding in something you put on every morning. Number 6, the human body louse. Head lice are irritating, but they are not known to transmit disease. Body lice are different. They live and lay their eggs mainly in the seams of clothing and bedding, then crawl onto the skin to feed. In crowded conditions where clothing cannot be changed or washed regularly, their numbers can explode. The bite is only the beginning. Body lice can spread 3 major bacterial infections: epidemic typhus, trench fever, and louse-borne relapsing fever. And once again, the pathogen is often not injected neatly through the mouthparts. An infected louse defecates while feeding. Scratching can grind contaminated feces into broken skin. Crushing the louse can release infectious material as well. A tiny, itchy bite becomes an open doorway. Epidemic typhus is caused by Rickettsia prowazekii. The bacteria attack cells lining the blood vessels. As those vessels become inflamed and leaky, the patient can develop high fever, severe headache, rash, confusion, low blood pressure, and failure of major organs. Before antibiotics, epidemic typhus killed on a historic scale. In severe untreated outbreaks, mortality could become extremely high, especially among older, malnourished, or medically fragile people. It is rare in the modern United States, but body lice disease has not disappeared. Bartonella quintana, the cause of trench fever, can persist in the bloodstream and infect the inner lining of the heart. That can damage heart valves and send infected clots into the brain or other organs. A recent New York City investigation found 5 cases of Bartonella quintana endocarditis between 2020 and 2023 among people who had experienced unsheltered homelessness. 4 developed heart failure, 3 developed kidney failure, 2 suffered embolic strokes, 2 died. 5 cases may sound small. The outcomes were not. This insect's danger is tightly linked to human conditions. Body lice flourish where people lack reliable access to clean clothing, hot water, laundry facilities, shelter, and medical care. That makes the threat easy for the general public to ignore, even while it remains serious for vulnerable communities. The body louse is not a jungle monster. It is a disease vector that exploits poverty, crowding, displacement, and war. Its deadliest weapon is not venom. It is the combination of bacteria, broken skin, and a victim who may be unable to obtain treatment quickly. Number 5. The kissing bug. The name sounds harmless. The feeding behavior is not. Kissing bugs are nocturnal blood-feeding insects in the triatomine group. Some species tend to bite exposed skin around the face, which helped create the nickname. The bite itself is often painless enough that a sleeping person never wakes up. But the bite is not how the most important pathogen usually enters the body. An infected kissing bug may defecate during or shortly after feeding. Its feces can contain Trypanosoma cruzi, the parasite that causes Chagas disease. When the victim scratches the irritated area, the parasite can be rubbed into the bite wound. It can also enter through the eyes or mouth. That detail is both disgusting and medically important. The bug does not normally inject the parasite in its saliva like a mosquito. It feeds, defecates, and leaves the contamination behind. The early stage of Chagas disease may cause fever, fatigue, body aches, swelling, or a lump near the entry site. Sometimes one eyelid swells when the parasite enters near the eye, but many infected people have mild symptoms or none at all. The infection can then enter a long silent phase. Years or even decades later, roughly 20 to 30% of infected people develop serious chronic disease. The parasite and the immune response can progressively damage the heart. The result may be an enlarged, weakened heart, dangerous rhythm abnormalities, heart failure, blood clots, stroke, or sudden death. Some patients develop severe enlargement of the esophagus or colon because nerves controlling the digestive tract are damaged. The United States has 11 recognized kissing bug species. 9 have been found naturally infected with Trypanosoma cruzi, and the insects are widespread across much of the southern half of the country. Studies of wild bugs in some locations have found infection rates ranging from around 30% to more than half. That does not mean 30% of people bitten become infected. Human transmission requires several steps, including infected feces reaching vulnerable tissue, housing construction, bug behavior, local ecology, and contact with wildlife all affect the risk. Documented locally acquired human cases in the United States have historically been uncommon. However, specialists have argued that domestic transmission is under-recognized because Chagas disease is not consistently reported everywhere. Many infections are silent, and many clinicians rarely test for it. So the honest description is this: the chance that one random kissing bug encounter in the United States leads to Chagas disease is low, but the consequence of a missed infection can be enormous. The parasite can remain hidden until the first obvious symptom is an abnormal heartbeat, heart failure, or a stroke. And kissing bugs have another weapon. Their saliva can trigger severe allergic reactions in some people, especially after repeated exposure. The creature may therefore threaten one victim immediately through anaphylaxis, and another decades later through chronic heart disease. If this is the kind of wildlife countdown that gives you real science instead of empty monster stories, hit like and subscribe to Wild Wonders. The top 4 are where the modern American death record becomes much harder to ignore. Number 4. Fleas. Fleas carried one of the most infamous killers in human history, and that killer still exists in the United States. Plague is caused by Yersinia pestis. The bacterium circulates among wild rodents and their fleas, especially in parts of the rural western United States. When infected rodents die, their fleas lose their normal hosts and may seek blood from other animals, including humans. Dogs and cats can also bring infected fleas closer to a home. The United States now averages only about 7 human plague cases per year. That is a triumph of sanitation, surveillance, antibiotics, and modern housing. It is not proof that the bacterium vanished. The most common form is bubonic plague. After an infected flea feeds, the bacteria travel through the lymphatic system. One or more lymph nodes can become intensely painful and swollen, forming the famous buboes. The patient may develop sudden fever, chills, weakness, and headache. Without treatment, the infection can escape into the bloodstream, producing septicemic plague. Blood vessels can clot and leak. Tissue may lose its blood supply and die. Fingers, toes, or other areas can darken from necrosis. If the lungs become infected, pneumonic plague can develop. That form can spread through respiratory droplets and is almost always fatal without rapid antibiotic treatment. Untreated bubonic plague has historically killed more than half of those infected. Modern antibiotics change the odds dramatically, but only when the disease is recognized and treated in time. Plague is not the only reason fleas rank this high. Flea-borne typhus, caused mainly by Rickettsia typhi in the United States, occurs most often in California, Texas, and Hawaii. An infected flea sheds bacteria in its feces. The bacteria may enter when a person scratches contaminated flea dirt into the bite, rubs it into the eyes, or encounters contaminated material another way. Most patients recover with appropriate antibiotics, but severe cases can damage the lungs, liver, kidneys, heart, or brain. Death is uncommon, not impossible. Los Angeles County reported a dramatic rise in flea-borne typhus over the last decade, reaching more than 170 cases in 2022. That year, 3 associated deaths were investigated. The fatal patients developed complications including inflammation of the heart muscle, shock, and failure of multiple organs. The flea succeeds because it is small, mobile, and connected to animals people often tolerate nearby. Rodents, opossums, feral cats, and household pets can all participate in local flea ecology. A person does not need to hike into remote wilderness to encounter one, and the fatal mechanism is rarely the bite itself. It is the pathogen introduced while the flea feeds, or the contaminated fecal material left behind, followed by a delay in which the illness can resemble influenza. Now we leave bacterial disease and move into venom delivered not by one hidden parasite, but by an organized colony capable of attacking all at once. Number 3. Red imported fire ants. The first sting feels like a spark driven into the skin. Then comes another and another. A fire ant worker bites with its jaws to anchor itself, curves its abdomen forward, and drives in its stinger repeatedly. Because the stinger is not barbed, the ant can continue stinging while pivoting around the bite point. One ant may leave a small arc or circle of lesions. A disturbed mound can release hundreds or thousands of workers. Red imported fire ant venom is dominated by oily piperidine alkaloids. These compounds damage cells and produce the immediate burning pain that gave fire ants their name. Within hours, the sting sites often form white pustules. They may look infected, but they are usually sterile at first, created by the venom's local tissue-damaging effect. For most people, the result is painful and intensely itchy. For a smaller group, venom proteins trigger a systemic allergic reaction. Hives can spread far beyond the sting sites. The lips, tongue, or throat may swell. Breathing may become difficult. Blood pressure can collapse. That is anaphylaxis, and it can become fatal within minutes. The exposure scale is what pushes fire ants so high on this list. As of early 2026, imported fire ants infested more than 367 million acres under the US federal quarantine map, including large areas of the southeast Texas, parts of California, and Puerto Rico. They occupy lawns, playgrounds, pastures, road edges, electrical equipment, and the soil around homes. People may step onto a mound without seeing it. Infants, older adults, people with limited mobility, and anyone who falls near a colony can receive a massive number of stings before escaping. Flooding creates an even more disturbing hazard. A colony can lock its bodies together into a floating raft. From a distance, it may resemble harmless debris. Touch it, and the living surface can climb onto skin or equipment and sting in large numbers. Precise national fire ant death totals are difficult to establish because certificates and surveillance systems do not always identify the species and published estimates vary widely. That is why sensational claims about an exact annual number should be treated cautiously. What is not uncertain is the mechanism. Fire ants are widespread. They sting repeatedly. A colony can deliver a huge venom dose, and in a sensitized person, even a relatively small number of stings can trigger fatal anaphylaxis. An allergic reaction does not always begin with dramatic choking. It may start with widespread itching, flushing, stomach cramps, vomiting, dizziness, or a strange sense that something is seriously wrong. Symptoms away from the sting site are a warning that the reaction is no longer merely local. But at number 2, the mortality data are much clearer. These insects cause dozens of documented American deaths in an average year, and one familiar species becomes especially dangerous, not because its venom is stronger, but because its entire colony attacks faster. Number 2, bees, wasps, and hornets. From 2011 through 2021, hornet, wasp, and bee stings caused 788 recorded deaths in the United States. That averages 72 deaths per year. 84% of the victims were male. Most fatal encounters are not caused by venom physically destroying tissue. They are caused by the victim's own immune system reacting with catastrophic speed. In a sensitized person, venom allergens cross-link antibodies attached to mast cells and basophils. Those cells release histamine and other powerful chemicals. Blood vessels suddenly widen and leak fluid. Blood pressure falls. The tissues of the throat can swell. The airways can tighten. The heart and brain receive less oxygen. A person can die from circulatory collapse, airway obstruction, or both. The frightening part is that sting severity is not always proportional to body size, pain tolerance, or the number of previous harmless encounters. Someone may have been stung in the past with only local swelling and then experience anaphylaxis during a later event. Another person may never know they are at risk until the reaction begins. Wasps and hornets can sting repeatedly because their stingers remain intact. A worker honeybee usually leaves its barbed stinger and venom sac in mammalian skin, but the detached apparatus can continue pumping venom briefly. Removing it quickly matters more than the exact method used to scrape or pull it out. Africanized honeybees deserve a careful explanation. Their venom is not fundamentally more toxic than the venom of ordinary European honeybees. Their danger comes from behavior. Colonies can respond more rapidly to disturbance, recruit more defenders, and pursue a perceived threat farther. The victim may receive hundreds of stings instead of several. At that scale, even a person who is not allergic can be in danger. Massive envenomation can damage red blood cells and muscle tissue. The breakdown products enter the bloodstream and can overwhelm the kidneys, leading to acute kidney injury. Severe cases may involve shock, abnormal clotting, liver injury, or cardiac complications. This creates two different fatal pathways. One is anaphylaxis, where a relatively small amount of venom triggers an overwhelming immune response. The other is toxic envenomation, where the sheer total dose becomes physically destructive. The same emergency signs apply across bees, wasps, hornets, and fire ants. Trouble breathing, swelling of the tongue or throat, faintness, confusion, widespread hives, or symptoms affecting multiple body systems. Epinephrine is the first-line treatment for anaphylaxis, and emergency medical help is still necessary, even if the person improves. Yet number 2 is not number 1. Here is the final spoiler. The insect at the top surpasses that average annual sting death toll with one American virus alone. It does not need a swarm. It does not need a painful bite. And many victims never realize they were exposed. Number 1. Mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are the deadliest insects you can find in America, and the margin isn't even close. The bite itself is almost harmless. A female mosquito pierces the skin, drinks blood, and injects saliva that keeps the blood flowing. The itchy bump is simply your immune system reacting to that saliva. The real danger begins if the mosquito is infected. Unlike many insects on this list, mosquitoes don't rely on venom. They act as flying syringes, carrying viruses and parasites from one host to another. By the time you notice the bite, the pathogen may already be inside your bloodstream. In the continental United States, the biggest threat is West Nile virus. Most infected people never develop symptoms. About 1 in 5 gets a fever, headache, body aches, fatigue, or a rash. But in fewer than 1% of cases, the virus reaches the brain and spinal cord. When that happens, It can cause meningitis, encephalitis, seizures, paralysis, coma, and even death. Around 1 in 10 people with neuroinvasive West Nile disease die, while many survivors are left with permanent neurological problems, and West Nile is only one disease. Mosquitoes in the United States and its territories can also spread Eastern equine encephalitis, which kills roughly 30% of patients with severe disease, as well as dengue, malaria, Zika, chikungunya, St. Louis encephalitis, La Crosse encephalitis, and Jamestown Canyon virus. Most of these infections are uncommon, but together they make mosquitoes by far the most dangerous insects in America. What makes them so successful is how easy they are to ignore. Many species breed in tiny amounts of standing water, a flower pot, a clogged gutter, even a bottle cap. Some bite during the day, others at dawn or dusk, and many people never even notice they've been bitten. Unlike a bee sting or a fire ant attack, there's almost no immediate warning. Days or even weeks later, fever, confusion, weakness, or paralysis may appear, and the tiny bite is long forgotten. That's why mosquitoes take the #1 spot. They're everywhere, they're difficult to avoid completely, and they spread more life-threatening diseases than any other insect on this list. The best protection is simple. Use an effective EPA-registered insect repellent. Wear protective clothing when practical. Keep window screens in good condition, and eliminate standing water around your home. A mosquito may leave the smallest mark of any insect in this ranking, but it leaves the biggest body count. So the final ranking is not based on which insect looks most frightening. The Puss caterpillar hides venom beneath fur. The deer fly can carry tularemia on cutting mouthparts. The body louse spreads bacteria through contaminated feces and broken skin. The kissing bug can begin a heart disease story that lasts for decades. Fleas still transmit plague and typhus. Fire ants combine repeated stings with enormous exposure. Bees, wasps, and hornets cause dozens of documented deaths through anaphylaxis and mass envenomation. But mosquitoes win by turning an almost forgettable bite into a delivery system for viruses and parasites. West Nile alone kills more people in an average American year than all recorded bee, wasp, and hornet stings combined on average. The smallest mark on this list carries the largest national toll. Like the video and subscribe to WildWonders, because the next animal we rank may be much larger, but not necessarily more dangerous.